If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. You can follow us on social media either on Facebook or on Twitter at cleverramblings. If you have any feedback or comments, please mail us at cleverramblings@gmail.com or visit our website cleverramblings.weebly.com. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and now enjoy today's podcast. Welcome everyone, this is the Clever Ramblings podcast. I'm Moritz.
And I'm Ivan.
And as usual, we're gonna talk about 4 topics today. This first one is gonna be some workout of some personal issues between me and Ivan.
Then trash.
Then we're gonna continue with signaling education. Then we're gonna talk about plastic pollution and why it's important to think about it. And we're gonna close with talking about mental health. So, as Ivan wants to take the first topic, because it's basically only gonna be a rant from him about me, you may start.
So, in summary, M is trash. For a lot of reasons, but one particular reason. Because last episode at the end we were joking. And, you know, as bros do, like, yo, man, I love you, man, stuff like that. And so I said to him, yeah, man, you know, I love you, whatever like that. And he actually said it back. However, in the episode, this jackass, I'm talking about M, edited out his part where he said, I love you too.
To my defense, it sounded really weird, and I didn't think at the moment that you would get so upset about it.
Nope, I am upset, man. You know, my entire life I've been wanting love, and you just denied it to me.
Well,
and I'm still pissed off.
I had to.
I can't even listen to
that
the
the
episode.
whole week.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I've been shitting on him for the entire week because he just, like, he could have. It's a couple ways he could have did this. Now, obviously, the number one way he could have did is just kept it in there because it was genuine. He says he loves me all the time, especially when he's wasted. The point is like he could have just left it in there because it was fine. He's talking about, oh, it sounds weird. What is weird about it? I'm comfortable in my sexuality, M. No, it doesn't seem like you are, M, or is there something, are you not comfortable with saying I love you to another man? Is that what it is? This is part of a larger issue, I believe.
No, I don't know where you're going with this, but you better stop, like, not on air, Ivan, with that shit. I'm comfortable with saying I love you to my best friend, and that was not my intent to make you look dumb in any way. That was just because I think it sounded weird, and I just edited it out. There was no...
What is weird about saying I love you too?
Because it really sounded weird, like hesitant, and then I just said it kind of weird way, and I was like, I just don't leave that in because it sounds weird. I wasn't thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna embarrass Ivan now. That was not what I was doing. So I don't know why you're so upset, especially as I said it multiple times. And I'm gonna say...
But the people didn't hear you say it.
Well, I love you then, man. So now
there
the
you
people
go. You
know
better
too.
not edit this shit out either, because I want it to be said just like that when you were squeaking in a high pitched voice, just like that. Because that's gonna make me feel better.
Yeah, because you're a snowflake and
man, fuck
your
you.
Feelings are very important. So.
You're a glacier. You're a fucking glacier. Go live in Antarctica or some shit. So the other way, so you could have just left it in, or what you could have did was you could have just edited both of ours out. But no, I felt like it was a personal attack on me because you just wanted me to that I'm showing how I care about my best friend, and you're just like not reciprocating that. What do you call it again? What did you say it was?
Unrequited love.
Exactly. And that's fucked up, man. It's really fucked up. But I think with enough time and enough healing, because time heals all wounds. I think we can move past this at some point in time.
Well, I'll be in Cambridge in about 3 weeks, so
I'm
Maybe
telling you,
then
I'm
some.
not going to answer the door.
You said I should come twice, not only once. So no, I know you want me there, and you're gonna open the door. You may punch me, but I'm fine with that. So.
I am not a violent person. I would never. What are you talking about? Why would I? Yeah, exactly. I love and peace is all I know about. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you say so.
Okay. Now that I think I've shit on you for enough.
Yeah, sure.
So, but if you edit out that love you that you said just now, I'm telling you, this podcast will be canceled indefinitely.
Oh man.
For a while. Because that will hurt even more.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna edit it out.
Better not.
So then let's talk about signaling in education. That was the second topic. So you did more research on that, so why don't you tell what that actually is?
See, here people are going to complain that I'm talking too much yet again. But it's okay. Here's the thing.
It just introduces. You don't have to talk for like ever.
Yes, I'm trying to be, more mindful of how much I talk.
It's kind of a hostile podcast today.
So I was listening to this podcast, which I believe it was from the Rationally Speaking podcast, or of Sam Harris, but I believe it was Rationally Speaking. We will provide a link. I'll find it to make sure. But it was basically about this person who is economist, I believe, who wrote a book called I think it's called The Case Against Education. Again, we'll
from
link
Brian Keltman, I think.
Right, and so we'll link all this, of course, in the video. And he's basically saying that what we think of, like, so if someone was to ask you, why did you go to school, right? Especially why did you go into like things like college and even grad school and blah blah blah, you would say, oh, because I wanted to learn the material, and it's important. School education teaches me like vital skills that I'll need later in life, blah blah blah. But in reality, like, what you really think is, we all know that a lot of stuff that we learn in school is not going to be relevant to what we end up. So it's not going to be relevant to our later lives. And then two, we also, like, it's more about showing off. So like, in that sense, that like signaling is that education is not about actually the content of what we learn in the classroom, but it's more about showing other people that yes, we can complete this, and yes, we can. I can get through education, so that employers will look at me and say, oh, this person obviously has suffered through this and this, and so they should be employed. It's not necessarily about how good you are, or how much you know. Yeah. So yeah.
I also saw an interview with him, and we also gonna link that one where he's directly answering questions.
We're linking a lot of shit in this one.
Yeah. But
Lincoln.
But so what he then argues, I disagree with. That he argues that you basically have to scratch all subsidizing for education, and basically that teenagers already can start working at a more young age, like 13 or 14. And I think that is just...
Wait, he really argues for that? I didn't see that part.
Yeah, well...
I didn't see that video. You didn't
see. So when I did research on that, I just typed it in YouTube and this came up, the interview with him. And he argues that they should start working. And I totally disagree with this. If you're 13 or 14, you shouldn't start working already. You should do things you like. And I think there's the difference between the US education and, for example, in Germany, where we only have to go to school for like until 12:30, where I think in the States it's like until 3 at least, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
long ass days for no reason.
So I think first of all, you should do this so that if you're young, you have more free time. But on the other hand, he's right that what's the most important thing is the degrees. And also during my education, I learned a lot of stuff, especially in biology, that I don't need anymore. And I don't really wanted to learn that because it was not interesting. I knew I wouldn't need it anymore. But on the other hand, I learned a lot of important stuff, not only theoretical, but mostly practical. And I think this is what education should be more practical stuff, more what you're really interested in. You're gonna want to specialize in something, you should choose that, and there should be different paths children can take to become specialized in one part and do what they want to do, and not, for example, learn math or like chemistry if they're not interested in this. Like if they're good with doing some practical stuff like woodwork or like sewing or something like that, they should pursue that one. But I think you have to give the children more option, and that's not possible by putting reducing the funds for education, by putting more money into education that makes more sense. And that it's not only about the degree, but about what you like, and then specialize the kids in what they want, but not just putting them into companies and letting them work for the companies, because I think that just benefits the companies, getting them more and probably cheaper labor than when they have to pay for a full employee that got a college degree. So I don't agree with him, but I agree that the education system should be improved in more specializing and more practical way.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, the point is not to get rid of more to get rid of parts, like to get rid of like education and just like say, oh, you should start working very early. The point is to make like education relevant, right? So like, for example, like in the States, you have to file your taxes. Yeah. And that shit is so complicated. Man, I tell you, I go to Cambridge and I still don't understand what the fuck. they be asking me these questions. You look this thing up and then it's like subtract here and add here and all that type of shit. I'm sitting there like, dude, if they could have easily taken like, it doesn't even have to be like for a full, like they could have taught us like, and they didn't have to teach us like necessarily young. They could have taught us in high school. Okay. Yeah. Here's a class for maybe like a month or so. Yeah. Of different taxes and stuff like practical shit that you'll actually learn, like how to manage your money, like how to, what are investments, what are things like that. I mean, I only thing I would disagree with you is that I don't necessarily believe that we should, like, I think in Germany, when you get out earlier, I think that works for Germany. Yeah. Because I think you just have a relatively like safe country. But as opposed to like in the States, like in Philly, like if my parents would like shit themselves if like they would say, oh, like they were gonna let me out at noon or 12:30 in Philly. What the fuck? No. Cause you know what I mean? These people know, like the violence, like, you know what I mean? I think like I said, in Germany it works because of the environment that you're in. I would rather like in the States, I'd rather like there be more money towards after school programs. So maybe you don't do like, maybe you study until 12:30, but then afterwards, maybe from, I don't know, 12:30 to 3 or 3:30 or 4, whatever like that, you do like after school programs, which I was actually a part of when I was younger. But we still had like really long days, like still until like 2:30. I was always in school since I was like 5. And so it's like, I think they should cut down on class time. Yes. Teach you more relevant shit that you're actually going to learn. I mean, and that you're actually going to like apply in your real life. Yeah. And then after school programs where as a kid, you can play, you can explore different things. So like you could say like you said, say you're interested in math. Okay. During after school, you could maybe, would be your approach, read more math books or read about math and explore that instead of, so I think school, like the idea, I think his premise is that school is supposed to teach you critical learning skills, critical thinking skills. And it doesn't a lot of times. So like the idea is that it shouldn't matter what the content is. It should give you the ability to think. Yeah. And I think that's been shown to like, it doesn't necessarily work if you have more and more education.
I think that's a good point. If you, for example, in the States cut down class time until like 12:30 and afterwards you can choose, let's say like 2 or 3 different courses that you do in the afternoon that specializes you in something that you're interested in. And the class time is just basic things, I know it's sometimes you're really not interested in shit you learn, but you kind of should know, like, a lot of people are not interested in history because they don't care what happened before. Yeah, but you should have basic knowledge of that. So if you can do the basic stuff, the basic knowledge that you should know, do it in the, like until 12:30, and in the afternoon you can choose things you really like and you probably want to pursue in the future and do this then. That I think would be a good solution to cut down on the only important thing being a degree and being that good in school. It's also a lot of pressure for everyone, because if you're not good at some class, that's gonna worsen your whole grade, and then you might not get the job you want that actually doesn't have to do anything with the class you were bad in. So it's also, if you specialize in something, maybe the companies could look more at how good you were at these skills compared to an overall skill. So that could be also good.
Right. And I don't think you should only learn practical things in school. I think it should try to develop your critical thinking skills. Mm-hmm. I think that should still be the core of education.
Yeah.
But I think, like, one, we need to do more research into why we're failing at developing critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And I do think there should be, but I think a lot of it should be practical. It should be more practical focus. And that includes science, like, so they should know basic science. They should know basic, biology, chemistry, physics, math, of course, reading and writing, even computer literacy. Like those things are practical. And of course, they should learn more theoretical things, like maybe philosophy, like, not like necessarily like reading like complex philosophy text, but like at least get them to think about things at an abstract level. So
I don't agree that he just says put them into companies so they learn how the company functions and how to do this kind of job. I think it's not the way to go. I think you have to revolutionize the education system, but by better educating the children and not by getting rid of the education system as we know it.
But do you think so we both disagree with like his method of fixing it, but do we agree with his signaling theory, sort of, that really what education is about is not about the content, and what it's actually become and morphed into is about showing off that you're smart or showing off that you've completed things, and it's not necessarily about what you've learned. Do you believe that? 'Cause I agree that's somewhat what education is really become, especially in the States at least. It's all about what's on your CV and all about what, or your resume, and all about what you've done and what clubs you've done. It's not like necessarily about what you know or anything like that. It's basically like to look good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Most of the companies look at the college degree you got. That's also why you have to have a master's nowadays, because a bachelor isn't enough anymore. And you may have learned more skills in your bachelor's than in your master's. I don't know how that is in biology, at least in my study is totally different. So I learned a lot more in my master's as practical stuff that I'm gonna need in the future. So, but I don't know how it is with other courses or with other types of classes. But yeah, I totally agree that it's more about having a college degree and not what you learned during your college time. And also the way probably most of the students learn is like at the end of the semester they just learn all the stuff. Then they have the knowledge for one test, and after that, after the exam, it's all gone. So, and then what does the grade actually say about you if you just learn for like 2 weeks and during the whole semester you didn't do anything and basically didn't learn anything, just for 2 weeks and then it's gone. So yeah, I totally agree that it's more about signaling than actually learning skills.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's we've done some good justice to that. And again, we'll link all of these topics
and give us feedback what you think, what you would change in the education system, or what.
I know most of my friends hate education.
Yeah,
trash. It was complete trash. Like,
I can't say anything about the state's education system. I just heard that it's trash. Yeah,
it's trash.
Yeah.
We were multiplying fucking decimals for like 5 years, I swear. Like it was like, which I mean is like okay to know like the general thing, but it's like, dude, we did this shit for like 3 years, 4 years. I'm like, dude, okay, if we're not getting it now, listen, bruh, it's just not gonna work. like we have calculators and it's good. So yeah. So I think we could wrap sort of this topic up, move on to our next
Plastic
topic.
pollution. So basically, as probably a lot of you know, is that plastic pollution is a real problem nowadays, especially in the ocean, where you don't know if you heard about the plastic island that is between Hawaii and the mainland of the States, that is estimated. So the real size, I looked it up, isn't actually known, but estimation range from a size about Texas to a size about Russia. So like a huge area that is just trash, and a lot of it is plastic trash. And what's the problem, of course, is that it takes a very, very long time, so between 500 and 1,000 years, for plastic to decompose on its own. And as we produce so much plastic, because everything basically nowadays involves plastic, from clothes to like packaging to everything, it's a lot of plastic we produce, and around 8 million tons land in the ocean nowadays. So that's how this big island can form. But whatever, not only the environment is affected, also is us, because I don't know if you ever heard about microplastic before.
Yeah. I mean, in the video that we'll link in the description, they talk about it, which is crazy.
Yeah, so it's about these little pieces of plastic, I think it was below 5 millimeters. I think it's considered microplastic. Well, it doesn't really matter. But what this is, basically the small pieces of plastic, they go into the ocean. Inside the ocean, of course, they're gonna picked up by animals, and this basically then goes on the food chain to us. And basically we also then have microplastic in us. And the main problem they also talk about in the video is that the chemicals that are being the plastic gets treated with is the real problem. For example, BPA, which is used to make plastic seen through, for example, for water bottles.
Yeah, transparent.
Yeah, transparent. And this basically, studies suggest that it interferes with the hormone signaling in our body, and about 93% of adults have BPA in their urine. So microplastics are also in us, and it's not about only the environment, but also about our health. So what do you think about the plastic problem?
Well, it definitely, it's definitely like, crazy. I mean, yesterday I was speaking with, my significant other, shout out to Lucy. And, like she was telling me about like how, like, cause I recently became like pescatarian. So I only really eat like fish, seafood, and so I'm trying to be healthier. But I basically cut out all pork, and I only eat like beef or chicken or any type of other meat, like 5 times a month. But other than that, I only eat fish and seafood, and of course a lot of vegetables and fruits. But she was telling me that even with fish, that it's like a lot of like these like she was talking about these microplastic that are in fish. And so like to be careful with how much fish that you actually eat, because even within, cause I was talking about like mercury and like all these things that, I want to make sure I don't eat too much fish. Yeah. But she was like, no, like one of the biggest problems is like plastic, because it's like you said, and also it's in the video, like it's in our food chain. Right. And so these fish like aren't necessarily eating the plastic directly, but they're swimming, and the microplastic is just in their environment. So it's getting sucked into their body, and then we're eating that shit. So, so it made me think like, oh yeah, like I need to definitely like even limit how much fish that I eat. So it's definitely crazy, because it's like, it's everywhere, right? Like now, like I use plastic all the time. So like now, even watching the videos made me like want to try to like definitely reduce how much plastic I use, and convert into try to use other things. And
so what I was thinking was, okay, I'm good on this side, because instead of using one-time plastic bags when I go shopping, I use a cotton bag all the time. And now I watched the video and it was like, yeah, the cotton bag is good as long as you use it 7,100 times. Then it does the same environmental footprint than producing the plastic bag. So I was like, okay, fuck, then what should I use then? Basically what you have to do, you have to carry it by hand from the store to your home, then you don't produce anything. So it's also a trade-off between the plastic pollution that comes basically after the production of the plastic bag and the environmental footprint, for example, a cotton bag does before it is used. So there's like a lot of stuff to consider. So I was thinking like, I'm good on this side, so I don't have to worry about producing too much plastic trash. But on the other hand, apparently I'm polluting the environment by using cotton bags. So it's like you can't do anything without being a trade-off, I think.
It's just, and like they said, it's just very complicated to try to like really, fix all that and to really, because it's not just like an easy fix. Like you can't say like, oh, just reduce the plastic you use, or it's a whole bunch of factors that go into it. And I feel like that, we don't talk about like climate change enough. Like definitely we don't talk about like use of plastic pollution enough, right? So it's like, to me, like the scary part is like, if like once the states and like I don't really know like what's going on in the states, it's like once we it's still taking us a long time to actually take climate change seriously. Like by the time we take climate change seriously, who knows how the fuck bad plastic is going to be if that's even less of an issue, like less of a talked about issue than climate change, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we're killing animals because these animals swallow it and they starve and they can't, like, it's crazy. Like, it's like a big environmental hazard that I think is not really talked about. And that's why we are talking about it this week. So all of our 10 fans, because I think we have grown at least 5 fans since we started the podcast.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely like we'll put links but seriously, like, we need to really take care of this planet and our environment, because if we don't, like, people care about, like, people have goals and dreams and want to make money and, be successful, and we won't do that if we don't have a fucking habitat. So it doesn't, you have to take care of your habitat first. And it's not really that difficult, right? Like, if you make sure you try to recycle and things and you make sure you throw things where they need to be, you don't litter, like, I think you can get into these practices, and at first it may be a little difficult, but I think over the long haul it's pretty easy fix once you get into a habit.
Yeah, and I think you have to start small. That's not a valued argument that you say, well, why should I change? I don't make an impact. Well, all movements started from like someone, and a little group of people started it, and then it became this big thing. So, and also no valid argument in my mind that, well, who cares about the planet? I'm gonna be dead in like 80 years anyway, and what comes after me, I don't care. Well, we are at this point that it's already making an impact, and I don't want to know how it's gonna be in 20 years. We have like this crazy climate that is like hot on one day, and the other it's like these big thunderstorms and a lot of natural disasters happening more frequently just because the things we do already. And if we continue with that, I think it's gotten worse and worse, and probably before our lives end we also suffer some real things that are gonna affect our life. Yeah, we should start now and exactly do things that help the environment. But like I told you, I don't know how you can be good on all fronts. No matter what you do, it seems like you're not doing it right.
Well, if everyone does their part, like a little bit of their part, it adds up, right? So I think that's the struggle, is getting a lot of people to do it.
Well, it's just so convenient. Everything is in plastic nowadays, and nobody thinks about it because out of sight, out of mind. If you put it in the trash, it's just gone, but it stays literally on the planet if you don't burn it for 500 to 1,000 years. So also maybe coming back to the educating people about plastic should be important.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard it, I think it's now a couple of years ago that they discovered first, I think it was a moth or something that could digest Plastic, and I think there's
Yeah,
also
they have. Yeah, I did see some research about like they found like some type of bacteria that can digest plastic and things like that.
And that could also, if you put money in research on that, then would be also helpful. If you could do this in like big style where you have a lot of bacteria and you just let them digest the plastic, that could also help instead of getting into the ocean and then through the food chain into us. So could be solutions, but we really have to put our time and effort in these things to make it better.
Yeah. I guess we can close now with our last final, very, very deep topic of mental health.
Yeah.
And why mental health is important. I don't know which one of us wants to go first.
You can go if you want to.
Of course, you would give me all the responsibility.
Because I talked a lot in the last two topics, so
I don't know why. You never shut up. I don't understand.
It's like the first time that I think I talked more than you on the podcast, so.
That is because I am learning to listen.
Yeah,
okay.
You improved, man.
I'm a great listener, Em, and that's all it is, you know?
Okay.
But, so, mental health. It's definitely is gaining more, like the concept is definitely gaining more like awareness, like in the world. It's because it's a huge problem. Like for one, you could think about just financially, it costs us a lot of money to deal with, like do we put in, into like institutions in order to treat people with mental disorders, and when things go bad. Also it's a very big burden on our like families and friends, because like, for example, if someone is very depressed, it doesn't just affect them, but it also affects their loved ones, like their close friends and family. And it's definitely like a tragic thing for everyone. Right. So, I think my own experience is like, especially like in the Black community, like that I'm from, like it's still like, mental illness is considered like a white person's problem, right? Like it's not like Black people in a sense, like the way I was raised, like, oh, you're oh man, you like if you could be like really depressed about something, and like, oh man, just you toughen up, like you'll be okay. Like,
I think a lot of people think it's a sign of weakness that you can't deal with your shit. So yeah. And
so a lot of people suffer it in silence. Like for example, like for me, like I was having like paranoia problems. And I went and I asked, like, my mom, I said, like, what is, because, it was like chronic, and it still happens a little bit, but it's died down a little bit, but it's more like I was having like these really bad episodes. And I asked my mom, I said, like, where, like, is there like any type of, like, cause, of course there is a genetic, component to it. And so I said, Mom, what is my family history and like paranoia and stuff? And she basically explained that like basically most of the males, like on my mother's side of the family, had like very serious paranoia problems and required like a lot of them required like hospitalization, and a lot of them like never actually recovered. Some suffered in silence because it definitely wasn't a thing that you discussed with your family, because they wouldn't believe you, or they would think, oh, like, it'll pass or something like that. And so, especially me having dealt with other like mental issues, like, it's a very like, close topic for me. Like it's a very like personal thing for me. And I think that, if a person, like there's a lot of people in the world that are suffering. The number one thing to do to not do with mental health is to pretend that it's not happening. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you feel depressed, or if you're hearing voices, or if you're paranoid, or if you're having like, these like sensations or these problems, like the important thing is like to talk with someone, but definitely like to take them seriously.
Yeah.
Especially because, like things could just get worse. Sometimes, you could be depressed for like a little bit. Like say, for example, you don't get a really big position that you were hoping to get. You could be depressed, and maybe that lasts like, a few days or something, and it goes, okay, fine. Right. Like, but if if this is like a key thing in mental disorders is that it's not only is it chronic, so like it happens for a certain amount of a period. So I think for major depression, I think it's 6 months. I may be wrong, but I think it's like a significant amount of time, and it has to negatively affect your life. Right. So if you're depressed for like a few days, okay, like you may like, feel really down, but it hasn't significantly affected your life in the long run, right? You've been able once you've had that slump, you're okay after that. Right. Yeah. But if this goes on for months and months and like you find yourself not wanting to get out of bed or something like that, then this is like a big problem. You need to so I think we just need to cultivate a society basically that treats these things as important. And I think even if you don't think these things like exist, even if you look at it just purely from a financial standpoint, like how much money we're spending on mental health. Like, yes. Even if you think, okay, this person's not really, 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 really depressed, if you're one of the people that believes that, then okay, well, fine. Maybe they just need to talk to you for a minute about something. And you could be saving a lot. Like if everyone did that and just took care of their friends and their family, we could save a lot of money that we're spending, and we could use it to other things. Yes. And so, yeah, so that's kind of like my stick on it.
Yeah, I think it's still kind of a taboo to talk about it in the public, that you have a mental illness. I think it's totally different from other health issues you have. If you have a bad knee, or if you, for example, you can't walk because you broke your knee. Nobody says just walk it off. But if you have a depression and you talk about it with probably not your family because they would care, but in like the public or something, you're like, just get over it, man. Get your shit together. That's not the way to approach this issue. I think that's totally wrong to treat it different from any other disease you have, just because it's a mental disease. And I think if the taboo would go away and it would be more of a topic you could talk about in the public, more and more people would also come out and say, yeah, I'm dealing with the shit and I might need help, and not just suffer in silence like you said. So I think a lot of has to change in how we see mental health, rather than being still a taboo and being seen as imaginative and just people that are weak and don't get their shit together. So I think a lot of things have to change to really get solutions for dealing with mental health.
And like I was saying, even if you do think it's imaginative, if you're one of those skeptical people that think it is imaginative, I mean, it has a very real effect. Like so for example, like people will say, oh, race is just a social construct, right? But it has very real effects, right? Like even if you believe that race doesn't exist, people are still getting killed and there's still discrimination, right? So and maybe in a theoretical sense, you may say, oh, race doesn't exist, but in a very practical way, it does, right? So even if you believe, okay, I don't really believe in depression, I don't really believe in schizophrenia, I don't really believe in these things, we're still actually in real life spending a shit ton of money to try to, in your mind, to combat things that don't even exist. So if you don't believe it exists, well, at least you should still be talking about it, because you should be like, okay, fine, like we need to find ways to, to figure out what's going on. But in my opinion, and I think in your opinion too as well, it does exist. It's been shown over and over again in numerous scientific studies. It's a real thing. But I think even if you don't believe it exists, I think even just from a financial standpoint and just a human standpoint, just if you know someone who's sad or going through some shit, you should just be compassionate and, have some empathy, because, you're probably going to have times in your life where, you may not be like really, really bad off, but I mean, you're not happy every fucking day. So it's like, just be a human.
Yeah. I don't know. They could also, the impact of our society that we have nowadays that like increases the rate of mental health, especially of burnout, as we work more and more. That also maybe if we would address this, there should also be some changes in the society, and maybe that's also why it's not that talked about much in the public. So I don't know, it would have a lot of effects, not only on how we deal with mental health, I think, but also about our society, what we should change if we really start talking about the issues we have that lead to mental health. issues.
Yeah. So, yep. So yeah, shit is real.
I don't know. It's a complicated topic.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's
and
really,
I mean, you know.
especially if you never had it, it's really hard to feel for the people or imagine what they're going through. So
yeah, but
I
just tend to believe people. If someone says that they're feeling this way, like, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Maybe they just need a good talk. You said it. Maybe they just need somebody they can talk to, and it's gonna go away. But if they suffer in silence, they're gonna suffer for their whole life, and maybe even end in suicide. There's probably a lot of suicide is caused by mental health issues and people not talking to other people because they are afraid that they're gonna make fun of them or that they're gonna fire them for the job or whatever.
right. So we need, and not just suicides. I mean, even shootings and, you know, a lot of, you know, bad shit that happens could be prevented if we took, you know, maybe if we took steps and believed it was real, what this person was saying. Because usually these people cry out for help before something happens. Right? Exactly, it's not like it just necessarily comes out of nowhere. There's always these signs that people ignore. Right? So, so take your mental health and those around you very seriously, because it can have it has very serious consequences. So.
Yeah. I think we come to the end of this podcast. Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening, and we're gonna see you the next time.
All right.
And just so you don't get upset again, I love you, Ivan. See you the next time.